Hi, welcome to my channel. It's December, it's 2019 and Christmas is coming. And today we're going to talk about softboxes. And I'm going to talk about various aspects, right from what is a softbox, how they work, their sizes and the difference that makes, the technical aspects, and right at the end I'll show you the differences of positioning them in different places and how that affects the light in the video. So first of all, what is a softbox? Well, a softbox diffuses light into soft, even light. It's used to reduce harsh shadows, and the closer the softbox is to the model or the person that's being filmed, myself in this particular case, the softer the light appears. They come in various shapes. Often they're rectangular in shape, and sometimes they're octagonal. The sizes vary. The one I'm using today is 50 by 70 centimeters, but often they go to double that size in the oblong format and can be quite big also in the round format. The bigger they are, of course, the bigger the light diffuses and the bigger the areas of cover. They work by having one or several strong bulbs inside. Typically inside is reflective material, often silver, and the light comes out through a translucent material, the diffuser. And by the time the light comes out, it's softened and distributes itself around the room. So you might ask, why may you use a softbox other than maybe other forms of lighting like an umbrella? Well, umbrellas, they produce broader diffuse light that's uncontrolled typically, and it's uncontained. The big thing about a softbox is that it's controlled light, much like light that might come through a window, so it has a direction to it. Another fairly popular light source is a ring light. These can be a little bit direct. The other thing with a ring light, if you look carefully in the model's eyes, my eyes for instance, you often see a ring around the pupils. Now some people like that effect, but personally for video it's not something, an effect that I go for. I'm going to talk about some technical aspects now of choosing a softbox, and I'm going to talk about voltage, brightness and also colour temperature. So first of all, voltage. Well, this is true with pretty much any electrical equipment. You need to know where you're purchasing it from and indeed where you're going to use it. And in the days of the internet, you can purchase from one country, it gets shipped to another country. So many countries over the world have typically 230 volts or 110. But the other thing that changes with voltage is the frequency. Many countries in the world run on 50 hertz, which is effectively a cycle frequency of the light, the flicker rate. But some countries like America and Canada run on 60 hertz. The other thing that's important, which is the obvious part of the difference, many of you will have noticed that the physical plugs are different in different countries. So Europeans have 2 pins, which are different to US 2 pins. The UK, we have 3 oblong pins, and there's other styles around the world. So you've got to get the physical connector right, but also the electrical connections. If you get a 120 rated bulb and you plug it into a European 230, the bulb is going to blow. And the other way around, you just won't get the right light out of the bulb. It probably won't even work. The thing about the frequency, the 50 hertz or 60 hertz, is really important for the videography. You may have noticed when you're filming, you get flickering on the video. And this is often the case that you've got the video speed mismatched to the light frequency of the bulb. Now, if you look at your 4K or your 1080p recordings on the camera, you can see you've got frame rates, 25 frames per second, 30 frames per second, etc. And what you need is some multiple of the frames per second that matches up with the bulb. So for instance, if you've got a European 50 hertz bulb and you set the frame rate to 25 frames per second, that's a half, you won't get flicker. If you set it to 50 frames a second, you won't get flicker, etc. And similarly in the US, Canada, where the electricity runs on 60 hertz, 60 cycles, you need the frame rate typically to be either 30, 60, etc., some sort of multiple. And that way you'll avoid the possibility of getting flickering on the video. The next thing is the brightness. So for a typical small studio like myself, this is an 800 watt bulb. Typically in the modern era now it's measured at 85 watts, but that's quite bright. It lights up here. It's dark. This room's dark. It's dark outside. This is the main lighting in the room, so you can see how effective this is. And the softbox is sitting about 1 meter behind the camera, slightly above the camera. The colour of bulbs is measured by Kelvin, and you might have seen those in typical domestic bulbs. The sort of things, if you're in a task area, you might go for maybe a cool white bulb, but if you're maybe a bedroom or a lounge area, you'd go for something that's a bit warmer. Now Kelvin, typically for bulbs, is measured somewhere between 2000 and 6500. The lower numbers are warmer, they've got more yellows in, and the ones up round about the 6500 are more blue, hence they're cooler. So cool white tends to be pretty much in the middle. That's typically from 3100 to about 4500. Daylight is around about 4600 to 6500, and at the lower end 2000 to 3500 you've got that warm white type levels. This particular bulb is 5500, so we're moving from the cool white to the daylight, which means it's a white bulb with a hint of blue in it. It hasn't moved all the way over to the blue of daylight. And sort of 5500 thereabouts is sort of a really good one for typical videographer type photography. It also works reasonably well for still photography, but in some circumstances there you might want a bit more warmth in it. Let's think about positioning and indeed the number of softboxes you have. So in a situation like I am at the moment, which is a fairly small studio, the most softboxes you'd ever really need would be 3, and that would be one at either side of the camera, probably at 45 degrees pointing at me at the same height as my face, and then one right behind, higher up, sort of pointing down. Now I only have one softbox, and what I've chosen to do is put it about 1 meter behind the camera, the bottom of the softbox in line with the top of the camera, so pretty much in line with the top of my head, and so the softbox is sort of pointing down on me, which gives that sort of overall soft light that you can see. But the other choices I might choose, depending on maybe where there might be some ambient light coming into the room from maybe a window, would be to position the softbox at maybe one side or the other side of myself to take out the shadows. So let me move the softbox and see what happens. So I'm sure you can immediately see the difference. Now I've moved the softbox, I've lowered it so that the middle of the softbox is level with the camera, and I've moved it 45 degrees to my right hand side. Now it's dark outside, I do have a window to my left, but there's no light coming through it, it's dark. And what you can see is the darkness on one side of my face in the shadows, and it brightens up the other side of my face. Now clearly if I had another softbox and this were a completely dark room other than the lighting of the softboxes, I could put another one at my left hand side and that would brighten up my face. Now let me try raising this softbox and we'll see the different result. So it's still at 45 degrees, but I've just raised it now so the bottom of the softbox is level with the camera, so the softbox is above me looking down. So as you can see, depending on where you put the softboxes and indeed the number of softboxes you have, you get different lighting effects. So just to finish up, I've positioned the softbox behind the camera, so the bottom of the softbox is level with the top of the camera and the softbox goes about 1 meter above, giving that diffused light coming down and lighting up the whole scene. So what have we learned? We've learned what a softbox is, why you might use it over an umbrella or maybe a ring light, how they work, some technical details about softboxes, and the different effects you might get if you position them in different areas. So if you found the video useful, please smash the like button, please click subscribe. It gives me the incentive to keep making these videos. It shows your appreciation. And of course, if you've got any comments or questions you want to ask, I'll do my best to answer them. So until next time, have a great Christmas if I don't see you beforehand, and thanks very much for watching.